Four teenage girls are inside a yogurt shop in Austin, Texas. By the end of the night, they are dead, and the building is set on fire. The case becomes one of the most infamous unsolved crimes in Texas history. Years later, police arrest four young men. Two are convicted, largely on confessions. But those confessions are later challenged. The convictions are overturned, and DNA evidence does not match the people who went to prison. So the question becomes unavoidable. Did police convict the wrong people? This is the story of the yogurt shop murders. On December 6, 1991, a fire is reported at an "I can't believe it's yogurt" shop in Austin. When responders get inside, they discover a horrifying scene involving four teenage victims. The murders shock the city and trigger an enormous investigation. Leads pour in. Tips flood the police department. The pressure to solve the case is immediate and intense. For years, the case hangs over Austin. Families wait. Detectives chase possibilities. The public wants answers. And the longer a case like this stays open, the more dangerous the pressure becomes. Because eventually, an investigation can shift from "find the truth" to "find a conclusion." Over time, authorities receive multiple confessions from different people. This is something that happens in high-profile cases more often than people realize, especially when the crime becomes famous. But confessions are not the same as proof. And in this case, the investigation eventually focuses on four young men: Robert Springsteen, Michael Scott, Morris Pierce, and Forrest Wellborn. They were arrested years after the murders. The story that follows becomes the reason the case remains so controversial, because the convictions that came next were tied closely to statements and confessions that would later be described as coerced or unreliable and later challenged in court. Two of them were convicted, and for a time it looked like the case had finally been solved. But then the foundation started to crack. This is where the story becomes complicated and painful. According to later reporting and court actions, the convictions were based largely on confessions that the defendants insisted were coerced. Over time, those convictions did not hold. Legal challenges revealed serious problems, and the convictions were overturned. Meanwhile, the forensic side of the case kept moving forward. DNA testing became more advanced. New methods could do things older labs simply could not do in the 1990s. And as the science improved, it raised a brutal possibility. What if the people convicted were not the people responsible? This is one of the most haunting themes in true crime. A case can feel closed on paper, while the truth is still out there, untouched. Years later, officials and investigators revisited the evidence with more modern testing. In major updates reported in recent years, authorities have indicated that advanced DNA testing and related evidence pointed toward a different suspect, Robert Eugene Brashers, who died in 1999. The Travis County District Attorney's Office stated that the evidence is clear that Brashers committed the yogurt shop murders. This is a huge moment because it shifts the story from unsolved to solved, in the sense that investigators believe they have the perpetrator, even though the suspect is no longer alive to stand trial. And it also reframes the earlier convictions, because if the DNA and evidence point elsewhere, then the question of wrongful conviction becomes unavoidable. In February 2026, reporting describes a major development. A Texas judge formally declared the 4 men who were once accused innocent, clearing their names in court. That matters, because there is a difference between charges dismissed and formally declared innocent. This case spent decades in a painful loop. Horrific crime, intense public pressure, disputed confessions, convictions, overturned convictions. DNA shifting the narrative. And finally, a public legal declaration clearing the accused. For the victims' families, it is not simple closure. It is a new kind of grief, because the case becomes a story not only of violence, but of what happens when the system fails under pressure. So what do we do with a case like this? 4 girls were killed in one of the most brutal crimes Austin had ever seen. For years, people believed it was solved. Then, the confessions collapsed. The science moved forward, and officials later pointed to a different suspect, and the court formally cleared the accused men. Which brings us back to the hook. Did police convict the wrong people? Based on the recent legal outcomes and statements from officials, the answer is that the earlier convictions did not represent the truth of who committed the crime. And the tragedy is that the real answers came far too late to undo the damage. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to True Crime Told for more cases like this. And if you want another story right now, click one of the videos on screen. I'll see you in the next one.